Are you confused by all the recent controversies going on across social media platforms about veganism, white veganism, problematic terms, calling people out, and what the best approach to vegan activism truly is? By the end of this video, you will understand arguments on both sides of this issue, as well as how some of the focus on white veganism and problematic vegans actually works to uphold human supremacy and speciesism. For more holistic vegan analysis like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below and make sure you hit the bell button so that you will be notified every week when I release new content. Hi friends, Serena here. Welcome back to my channel, and for those of you who are new, I've been vegan since birth, and I teach people about veganism and help empower people to live as ethically and sustainably as possible in our extremely complicated world. For anyone who isn't aware or hasn't been following what's going on, there's essentially, I guess I'd call it like a pretty big split within the vegan community. I describe it, the bigger issue, as being between the intersectional vegans and the absolutist vegans. The intersectional vegans are those that are concerned about white veganism, that are critiquing our movement, that have a lot of issues with how things are being done right now and want to make the vegan movement more intersectional and supportive of human rights issues. The absolutist vegans, for the sake of this video, I'm going to describe as the vegans who are animal rights advocates and sort of doubling down on animals being the only thing that matter in this movement, and I don't care about humans, the animals are our focus. Talking about human issues and other things distracts from the animals and the focus on animal rights. Right now, what I see going on is that both sides are clinging tighter and doubling down to their approaches, especially when they feel attacked by the other side. And I think a lot of people really aren't listening to each other anymore and aren't truly grasping or understanding some of the key points that both sides are making. So, this is my video today, my approach. I'm going to be talking about what white veganism is and how it's being defined. And then I'm going to talk about the things that I agree with, the intersectional vegan polarized side about, and then the things that I disagree with them about and where I think that the absolutist animal rights advocate vegans are more correct about. So, white veganism, as I understand it, is essentially the form of mainstream veganism that ignores intersectionality and ignores solidarity with other justice causes. It's especially visible in how mainstream media has portrayed veganism as being a movement by white people and primarily for white people. It's also when vegans behave in racist or sexist ways and claim that they are vegan and or use racist and sexist language and behaviors to try and convince other people to be vegan. It presents veganism as always being easy and accessible to everyone equally, which often leaves marginalized individuals and people feeling left out or excluded from the vegan movement and like it's not a welcome place for them. Critiques of white veganism are usually followed up by some sort of promotion of intersectional veganism and advocacy for placing veganism and animal liberation into a total liberation framework that works to dismantle all systems of oppression, including the patriarchy, white supremacy, and often capitalism as well. I see way too often that there are a lot of vegans that have this attitude of, screw humans, I don't care about humans, this movement is just for animals, and I don't care if what I do hurts humans in the process, offends humans in the process, because only animals matter. And animal oppression is so much worse than anything else ever going on, and it's the only thing I care about. I think that is incredibly naive. I do think we need to be holistic. I personally, although animal rights is the driving force behind my veganism, I personally am very holistic, and one of the reasons that I've always liked talking about veganism and food rather than, I talk about other issues like animal testing as well, but part of the reason that I've always felt drawn to talking about our food system when it comes to veganism is because I care about the animals, because I care about our planet, because I care about human health. Because for me, I want to make the world a better place, and I think extending our circle of compassion and justice to include non-human animals is a crucial piece of that. But I am not a fan of using sexism or racism to sell veganism, as groups like PETA and others have done in the past. I think that is absolutely problematic and needs to be left out of our vegan advocacy. We do need to be working for total liberation and total anti-oppression. It doesn't make sense to advocate for the liberation of one group at the expense of, or, in exchange for oppressing another group of individuals. Similarly, the whitewashing and the hero worship within the vegan movement are both extremely problematic things that I think we absolutely need to be addressing. Veganism is growing predominantly in Black and brown communities. And there's some statistics around this that I don't have right now. I think I talk about them in my previous video again. But veganism is often presented as a white thing, as an expensive thing, as an elitist thing. The images, the movement, the groups that get media attention, all of those things look very white. And that's whitewashing when there are Black vegans, there are other vegans of color, there are indigenous vegans that have been speaking about and talking about veganism for years and have never been given a platform or attention. Similarly, I think the vegan movement does have a problem of elevating white and especially white male figures to sort of celebrity status positions without really good reason. There isn't, in my view, like a reason why those people have actually done more or are more effective for animals than many other advocates, women, people of color, who don't get that same kind of social media following, of media attention, of hero worship and celebrity status. And I do find this incredibly problematic. That may be a piece of the white supremacy in our system, that may be a piece of the patriarchy in our broader world that the vegan movement has adopted and leads to us elevating these people. The biggest problem that I see, and where I think intersectional vegans go wrong, is not with the fundamental ideas of intersectionality. It's with how the term white veganism is being applied across, in popular discourse, across social media, by some vegans and especially by non-vegans, in a way where they're essentially weaponizing the term white veganism against vegans and anyone who they disagree with or don't like their approach and what they're saying, even when it really is unrelated and not explicitly tied to issues of white supremacy or anti-oppression. A lot of people that are weaponizing this term and using it, calling themselves intersectional vegans, and speaking about the problems of white veganism, I think many of these people fundamentally misunderstand or misrepresent veganism and don't truly get what it's about. And so I think for a lot of these people, they are viewing veganism as simply a boycott or an ethical mode of consumption, similar to buying fair trade or shopping locally. It's like one of these many different things within our capitalist system that we can do to be more ethical. And for them, I think veganism is about being against factory farming. They view factory farming as the problem, and they either don't understand or don't agree that using and exploiting animals is fundamentally the problem that vegans are speaking about. And I'm seeing this so much in the conversations around white veganism, with the intersectional vegans who are calling out problematic white veganism and white vegan culture. They seem to think that factory farming is it, that capitalism is it. If we get rid of capitalism, if we get rid of factory farming, that solves our problem. But here's the thing, veganism is not about being against factory farming. It is about a fundamental principle of justice, that animals have the right to their life and to their own body, and that they deserve liberation as well as humans. And that's what the absolutists animal rights advocates and vegans are speaking about. And that's something that I very much agree with, that the intersectional vegan side, I feel like, is fundamentally misunderstanding. They seem to think that white supremacy and capitalism, the patriarchy, are the fundamental problems. I think those things are a problem, but they are not the problem. Human supremacy and speciesism is also as much of, if not more, of a problem, because we have no example of any society ever that wasn't built on human supremacy and speciesism. And so they are using this term white veganism to criticize, attack, silence, shut down discussions around people that are saying things like culture is not an excuse to exploit and kill animals, or that the whole world should eventually go vegan. And for me, while I understand, one of the issues that comes up around white veganism is issues of food access and income inequality and not everyone having equal access to healthy whole plant foods. I think that can be an issue that we need to work to change. And I can still think that in the ideal world and ideal future, those things wouldn't be an issue and everyone should go vegan. That animals should have the right to not be killed for taste, convenience, pleasure, culture, and any of these arbitrary issues that are not true need and necessity. And to be clear, there are a number of people that I view as intersectional abolitionist vegans who truly are working for the dismantling of all systems of oppression and rooting out white supremacy within veganism, and they truly do understand veganism and speciesism and want to abolish animal use. And here are a few of them. I will link them in the description below. As I said before, that I think veganism needs to be total and inclusive and not using other oppressions to advocate for animals. We also have to recognize how real human supremacy and speciesism are, and that in the case of human supremacy, all humans are essentially the oppressor status. All humans benefit from human supremacy, whether we like it, whether we want it, whether we realize it, or know it or not. We have to recognize that the oppression that non-human animals face is incredibly different in many ways than the oppression that humans face. And while both are important and both need to be talked about, we need, and it is okay to have a movement that is specifically focusing, as long as it's not oppressing others in the act, but that is specifically focusing on oppressed non-human animals. Non-human animals right now are being bred into existence, confined, mutilated without anesthesia. They are being killed for their flesh and secretions in the billions, trillions when we include fishes and marine life, in such horrific, unique, different ways that humans are not being exploited in that same way. All oppression, all atrocities throughout history have been justified by similar arguments. The same three arguments, really. It's normal, it's natural, and it's necessary. Whether for culture, whether for society to function, whatever. But those things have been used to justify oppression of people, and those arguments are now used to justify oppression of animals. And while I agree with the intersectional vegans that throwing around terms like Holocaust or slavery just willy-nilly and for cheap shock value is problematic and unnecessary and can facilitate human trauma by triggering generational trauma. I think that's unnecessary, especially if we have other terminology we can use. But that is extremely different to me than drawing parallels between systems of oppression or longer discussions of the similarities and differences in how these systems operate. So yes, all suffering is different. Every oppression is unique in its own way. And I spoke about how non-human animal oppression is unique compared to any other human oppression. And we can't compare those, nor do we need to. But there is a lot we can learn from understanding the systems of oppression, how oppressors justify and treat those that they oppress. And when we look at the issue of human supremacy and speciesism, The justification is animals are lesser than us, they're different than us, so what we do to them is okay. How is that not similar rhetoric and logic to how we've justified not giving women the right to vote? They're different than us. They're too emotional. We've always appealed to that they're different argument. And that fundamentally has to stop. We have to stop othering groups of individuals based on an arbitrary criteria that justifies stripping them of their rights and their life. Check out these other videos for more information on white veganism and vegan privilege and elitism. And to get your own free vegan living starter guide, you can sign up for my email list at the link below and download your guide now. I will see you next week.